Hi, everyone. I'm David. I'm the CEO of WealthFluent. Prior to starting this venture, I spent 20 years in industry at institutional asset advisors, most recently as the chief data officer for the largest private pension manager in the country. So, spent a lot of time building analytic systems and tools for portfolio managers and clients. And we take a lot of that experience and try to bring the institutional grade tool set to regular people with WealthFluent. And so I was looking this morning. It seems like about a little less than half of the class has signed up so far for WealthFluent. Let me know if you have any questions or issues in the sign up process. And what you'll see just before you get to this screen when you sign up after payment is a series of just straightforward kind of onboarding questions about, and answer those as yourself, uh, family makeup, income, industry, profession, those kind of things. And I have this demo put together from the perspective of the student. So this is the same product SKU as what you signed up for. One of the more important things I'm sure everyone would like to know is the education section, which you can find from knowledge at the top or from the education icon on the side. That's where you get the do-it-yourself wealth management book, that's part of the course. And you can download either as an EPUB or a PDF. So if that is not clear. And then so the whole concept on the side here is what we call the task manager. So this is what helps, based on the initial onboarding inputs, helps the user understand what is next to, like you were saying, get the engine going, get the wealth portfolio up and running. And then this is actually used throughout the life cycle for tasks that the user needs to complete, either for changes to the portfolio or helping with planning and goals, things like that. And wanted to note that WealthFluent does have both Android and Apple apps that you can download from the app stores. The Mac, the Apple app is iPad, Mac, and iPhone. Also, every new user gets a demo workspace, and we'll kind of open that for part of the demo today. And the purpose of that is so that you kind of get a family where everything's filled in. So you can try things out before you have filled everything in. And so after you have gotten through, adding everyone in the family unit, what we call household members, you go through the process of filling in all of your accounts. And these accounts that will be listed as tasks here are you self-identified as having in your wealth portfolio. And, essentially, we support either through connected accounts or manual accounts, majority of assets and liabilities that are likely for someone to have. You can always go through things like collectibles and, other valuable types, as well as we support crypto and connections. So the engine behind the connections is Yodlee, which is sort of the oldest and most robust platform, similar to a Plaid, where it's 17,000 US institutions supported here. So usually we will see maybe a small credit union or something like that not supported, or a newer fintech platform maybe isn't supported, but even things like Wealthfront are supported with connections. And if you can't do the connection, you always have the ability to, and I think you guys will do this in the course a bit, where you actually create manual accounts where you're able to add in really any investments that you would like to do. And, you always have the ability to control the quantity. All prices in the platform are automatically updated by ticker from a third party pricing source about every 5 minutes. And so once you're at the point where you have some of your accounts in, you will enter through sort of the ability to to see that portfolio in a couple of different ways. So financial health is really where we have a snapshot in time of one's wealth portfolio. Let's go to the demo user workspace to see that. And switching workspaces, we'll get into that more later, but very is basically a takeover of a second instance of WealthFluent. And you would have history of net worth, you have quick access to understanding what the expenses are in the account, what the balance sheet looks like, can explore allocation quickly and get a sense of where your financial health is, which is usually we look at as net worth as the best indicator to evaluate that. So planning is sort of the centerpiece of WealthFluent. This is where the user is able to add in their goals, have a sense of what their retirement plan is going to be, and actually pick a benchmark portfolio by trying to look for a solution that is workable. And so we have a plan analysis that automatically adjusts based on any changes to the plan. So if you're very conservative, you will likely have enough in this case for the rest of retirement. But you may not have as much as you would like potentially for goals not yet added. So you're looking for a solution and the analysis helps you find that solution. So you have the ability to adjust the expected wealth versus risk trade-offs. This is the spectrum of where you would land on an efficient frontier, which you're also able to see kind of the makeup of that in our dynamic benchmark. And you can adjust things based on what your profile is. We take into account lots of pieces of the puzzle, but one of the most important things to think about when planning for a lifetime is, the biggest risk people usually have is living too long in retirement. And you want to make sure that your assets last as long as you live. So having an accurate sense of health is important. So we use the actuarial tables from the IRS to estimate expected life, but your change in input, if you have a condition, you have a case where you're much below average, you don't need to plan for life past 78. But if you or a spouse is in great condition, you need to plan for a life expectancy into your 90s. So you have all the elements you need. Then, and some of this comes through when you're going through the onboarding questions, but you have a sense of, what do you expect to be spending in retirement, what you'll need to withdraw from the portfolio in retirement. Changes to that will affect the plan and the projections of all the outcomes. And the lines you're seeing here are expected wealth, the upside potential, and the downside risk. So the analysis is always looking at, hey, do you have a risk of ruin? Do you have the possibility of running out of money years before the end of retirement, which is end of life? In this case, when we try to have $250,000 in income of retirement, we're going to be 23 years short. So we always talk about this as what planning allows a user to do is answer all the big questions in life. Will I have enough to retire? Will I have the retirement I want? When will I be able to retire? So again, what we do in the planning tool is you work through all those options and possibilities and you add goals as those things come up in life. And this is done in a way where it can be granular. If every vacation or every expenditure over $5,000, you could put a goal in for that, or you focus on the big things. Either way, all future cash flows are taken into account in the plan, as well as the investment returns of the chosen portfolio. Another way to deal with this risk of ruin problem is to put in a schedule where you actually can change that expected wealth versus risk trade-off into the future. So you could de-risk or increase risk in the future to try to find a solution that works for you. And so once you've chosen this plan, what you get is an investable dynamic benchmark of a set of securities from the 16 or so that make up the components of the market. And this will change based on what the market is offering on any given day, the weights, the amount of each of the assets in that, and or it's changing based on your preferences. So if you are looking for more of a growth portfolio, you are looking to take on more risk, the mix of assets will change in that benchmark portfolio. And this benchmark portfolio is what drives the rest of WealthFluent. This is the what you compare against as well as what you are striving for. So now that we have some of those pieces in place, let's go back to home, where we always give a glance when you first log in of all the sort of big pieces of the platform. So you're able to see where your portfolio is in its comparison to the benchmark portfolio. You're able to see a glimpse into the wealth plan. Users are able to see what their current net worth is, what their net worth is expected when they're retiring, or if they are retired, this will flash what their wealth is expected at the end of life. Dr. Khan will talk a lot, I assume, over the coming weeks about volatility and about treasury rates and all the pieces that help make up sort of the key indicators of what's going on in the market. So we put those up front. So we always have VIX and then major indices and everything in a quick market widget is what we call all of these. Everything is actually able to be moved around based on your preferences. Some people are performance people, some people aren't. In the mobile view, you have to make sure that if you want to see performance first, you got to put it over there. And you can always reset these pieces to their defaults. Also, we get the ability to see all of your accounts sliced and diced any way you'd like. So we have, by institution, type, tax status. So you can see what are the tax deferred accounts versus the taxable accounts. You're able to go by category, if you just want to see banking versus investment. So we have all the metadata about all the accounts that lets you see it in different ways with all the totals. So what you get to from here, right? We've got financial health planning. You also are able to go and look at our market analysis, which is, again, I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion of this in the coming weeks, but this is what we call a expert level overview of what's going on in the markets. So here's the details of VIX, right? You're able to see the history back until it has existed and understand what the long-term average volatility is. This huge red line right here is the highest VIX has ever been. And I assume folks remember what happened in 2020 that caused some volatility. You're also able to look kind of where the stock market forward looking is at any moment, what your return versus volatility trade offs. You have access to all the components that make up that, understand correlation. So there's a lot of analysis and details here that you can look at. And a lot of this is what actually drives the automatic pieces of the platform and the choices in the plan. Um, the other big indicator is the US yield curve and understanding, again, all the pieces in the bond market and performance. And, we keep, sort of the major cryptocurrencies as well. And we touched on earlier where the book is, but we also have a large knowledge base of all of the articles we've produced and put out there. You have a user guide if you want to kind of find and read around things, of how to use it. You always have access to the glossary. So this is there's plenty of cases where things like duration are, lots of different definitions out there. These are the definitions of what is actually used in WealthFluent. Then where a lot of folks, especially on the mobile app, like to hang out this is your holdings sans accounts, what your holdings are across all accounts. So you can look at, return, by percent or by dollar, any of the sorting you need to do. This is probably where I look at the most on the mobile app every day. And I have cases where I have different stocks in a number of different accounts. It'll actually show you what accounts those are in, but still aggregates it as if it's one position. And so this is a really nice way for you to get a good holistic view of the portfolio. Again, you can explore all of those pieces and go to where those allocations are. Let me see if I have. Then transactions is where you see all of the inflows and outflows based on all the transactions from whether it's credit cards or it's trades in a brokerage account. You can get a good sense of, where the net inflow is across all of the different accounts. What's also nice is you can search for any transaction. So there's a lot of what we call kind of basic personal finance tools here as well, where, hey, what credit card was I using when we spent X dollars at this restaurant? I can find those things out as well. And we've got this great, nice, like looking interface, but you also can always chat with our AI layer, which we call our AI agent Magpie. Magpie comes from our logo, which is a magpie, chosen because, of this way magpie sort of signifies wealth and luck and things like that. But you can ask Magpie anything, and Magpie has a good sense of everything in all of your accounts, your family, your goals, and everything that's in your wealth plan, where you can actually, you know, and you can ask, hey, am I on track to retire? All those kind of big questions. But you can also say, how much did I spend on this last month? You can ask a lot about, how does the allocation look? Are there risks in certain places? And so when we added the AI layer, we really made things, from this next level of what would make sense for the questions that we don't know people will ask. And, you can also, we sort of talked about adding goals in the plan. You can actually talk to Magpie and add your goals as well. So it's a lot of really good ways for you to sort of see, you know, and interact with your portfolio. So yeah, you can see it puts together, your retirement, what's going on in the plan, the analysis. It'll put in notes. There's cases where it will say, what our philosophy is and how that works, things you should consider. So again, we're not treating Magpie as a advisor. We're treating Magpie as a companion for the user to discuss things about their portfolio, and it gives you not necessarily recommendations, but insights. Then let's go back. So the actual portfolio is, we have what we call the allocation widget, where you're able to look at your portfolio in aggregate by all the different accounts, but also what all the different potential exposures are. So and the allocation widget at the top lets you navigate, if I want to understand where credit quality is, or if I want to go and just look at what's the global distribution of the stock piece of my portfolio, I can see that. And then it also will navigate to that within the accounts as well. So there's close to 60 different ways to slice and dice here. And this all comes in from Morningstar. So, no matter what brokerage someone's connected with, they get all these details about all US ETFs and mutual funds, and understanding, how much of each security type is in each fund. And we use all of that to drive our portfolio optimizer, which goes and compares your portfolio to your benchmark, and you can revise your portfolio to get closer to your benchmark, is really what the optimization is doing. So it helps you through making those changes to, what makes sense given any of your big pillars that don't allow change, to get closer to your benchmark. So, if someone has a pension, or they have a house, or any of these pieces where they're not easily liquid and movable, you work around those to find a good solution towards your benchmark. You're unlikely to be able to fully match the benchmark unless you have one retirement account and one bank account, for instance, something like that. And there's even the tool set in here that helps you figure out, well, what don't I have that I need to get closer to my benchmark? You can screen for what the right securities are to add to the portfolio. You can look for what's the lowest expense ratio, whether it's the right. And let's say you're trading at Schwab and you want the Schwab funds only. You can just look for those. And then you can even choose what accounts make most sense to add the security that you're missing to, and then run the optimization again. Now, probably won't see it in the next couple weeks, but we are working on a driven version of getting closer to the benchmark where you're actually be able to have a conversation with Magpie about all of the pieces that you have to move around to get closer to a solution. So that we're we're very excited about this piece. This will make it much easier for the layman closer to a good portfolio allocation. Okay. Uh, Now I want to talk a little bit about a couple items related to the course. So we talked about the concept of workspaces. So like I said, a workspace is like a second instance of WealthFluent. So you have, if you go up to workspaces and you go to manage workspaces, you have the ability to switch workspaces. Again, everyone comes with a demo, but you also have the ability to duplicate a workspace. So let's say you really like the demo one, but you want to try it with a different scenario, with a different plan. You actually have the ability to duplicate that workspace, and then you can make changes to the duplicate version of it. You also have the ability to create a blank workspace and start from there, and then, enter in all the pieces about the person and add accounts. So, built this so that people can have explore different scenarios at a bigger level, or there's cases where you have folks who want to see one spouse's wealth portfolio separate from the others. So you could make a copy of the main one and then delete the accounts that are only related to one or the other. You can create cases and examples. We have some of our advisors who are creating demo workspaces of different personas. So this really allows you to sort of take and have the ultimate level of different scenarios. Now, for those, there's likely to be some assignments coming up where you will be getting some workspaces from Dr. Khan that you will either use as a case to look at or you will make changes and submit it. So there's an ability for sharing. And so you're actually able to have workspaces that are shared with you or workspaces that you share with others. And again, all you do to if something shared with you, you can load it and then move to anywhere else, and the whole portfolio is changed to that workspace. And then you can also quick switch between those as well. And then again, in manage workspaces, this is where I have an assignment, I'm ready to turn it in. I go and I can share with any WealthFluent user. So all you need to know is their email address. You can also bulk share it. Let's say you um, need to all three professors in this course, you want to share with them at once. You can just paste in their emails and you can share with them. And so we've built this with permissions for security as well. So there are cases where you may want to share your workspace with that uncle of yours who's a financial advisor, unofficially of yours, but you may not want them to see what you spend on restaurants and shopping. So you don't give them access to your transactions. And then, different relationships have different pieces. So again, when we have cases where there's an advisor and client relationship, they're most likely to want their advisor to make changes to their plan, uh, and so that they can make changes and then show it to them. And then we also have this important piece down here. So when you share with someone, you have the ability to allow them to duplicate the workspace you shared with them or not. This is mostly for the cases where it's fictional workspaces, like I said, for assignments. So like some of those workspaces you saw there that were shared from Professor Khan, those are view only permissions, but with the ability to duplicate so that you can then duplicate it and then make changes and then reshare. So again, the owner of the workspace has full control of how they share it with others. And then if you are sharing any of these workspaces with someone else, it'll show you who it's shared with. You can always revoke those permissions. And that's instantly they lose access. I think that's most of. Let me go to. So there's a couple of other things that you may get into. There's the concept of you might have a brokerage account that is connected, but it's a non-public ticker. So you may have cases where you need to override the information about a security. You can put in a proxy ticker if that's a non-public, but it's like an S&P 500 fund. Or you can do things where you fill in the details from a prospectus or something like that. So there's a bit, of data management possibly as well. Again, that's sort of the oddball cases, not the common cases. Some of this looks strange because it's so I wanted to give ample opportunity for questions about either WealthFluent and the business, accessing things, signing up, or questions around capabilities and direction.
Okay, and identify what accounts could be available for college and ones that maybe cannot be available.
Yeah. So what's the nice about the way we think of things at WealthFluent is it's holistic. So when you're planning, you're planning against current net worth, and then the investment returns and cash flows of all of the pieces going forward. So until you execute the goal, you don't think about which account it's going to come from. You think about, will you have it in total? When we get to the execution of a goal, yes, you have to figure out which account to pull it from. And we're actually adding a bit more of this where we'll have sort of the overlay of the how much in liquid assets you have. We have that, but in the plan versus non-liquid versus retirement for goal execution. But the way you really want to think about it is not people have buckets, right? And they think about things of this has to be from here or there. This allows you to look at the entire portfolio and pull the money from where you can pull it at the moment to fulfill the goal. And if some of the question was about adding goals for college, you can work with Magpie on if you want to add college goals, where it can help you figure out what, the expected, it knows, right? If there's a child in here, what their birth date is, what age they go to college. It can then find what, ask you state versus private school and give an estimate of what it expects the tuition to be. And then it will enter all those details into the goal for you pieces. So you have the choices here to enter in any of those alternatives as accounts, in here, where you enter in all of the details. Now, if it's you also enter in those details with the knowledge of how it's structured, so you put in the percentage of allocation towards different qualifiers, like, what if you think it's like a small cap investment and you classify it that way, or you add a proxy to it. So you're able to put in all of those details of anything structured. So we also have private business and things like that. Yeah. So if you actually hold anything in a brokerage that's connected, all of those type of securities would be supported as well. And when you think about it, it's more exotic security types. We love it when we have customers who have those, and we can make sure we model them correctly. So feedback on those things, or if you have pieces that you want to try, we want to make sure everything works. Yeah. So what we do have, so what's interesting in what this AI version of the optimizer we're developing, when you try to do strange things, we were talking about this with the development group this morning, you can ask it, hey, I want to take out 10,000 from my IRA. It'll come up in the chat with a critical warning telling you, well, you're going to have all kinds of penalties and tax implications, and we'll stop you from some of those pieces. Our AI does run Claude Sonnet 4.5 in the background as the frontier model. So all tax law, all of those kind of things, it has good knowledge of, and then it's trained on all the works of Dr. Khan, all of our philosophy, and our knowledge bases of all of our content as well.